Hi guys, I'm back with another game I've been playing recently, trying to get a bunch off my bucket list and working my way mostly through some shorter games so I know that I have time to actually play through them, although some are shorter than I expected them to be, and that leads me to Spirit Camera, this odd little spin-off of the Fatal Frame series, which I really enjoy. It's probably my favorite overall horror-themed gaming franchise. And this was a decent game with some really interesting ideas that weren't quite implemented to their fullest. It wasn't quite the game that it could have been, and it's the type of game where the initial entry is flawed but has a lot of great ideas, to where I really think a quality sequel would have been fantastic, but I don't think that'll ever happen. Partially because this game does have so many little flaws that kind of hinder the experience, and as I mentioned, it was shorter than I expected it to be. I played through the whole storyline in a little over 3 hours, and there is some additional content, some little sort of almost mini games that involve all the tools and the way that it uses the 3DS that you find in the main story. They're all kind of little extras that, again, don't add that much time to it either. Another couple hours maybe, but they really aren't that interesting. The real meat of the game is just that storyline, the way it uses the 3DS in interesting ways. But again, yeah, around 3 hours just isn't too much there. One thing I do have to say, if you do pick this up, make sure it comes with the booklet. I'll bring that out here. The manual, of course, just the regular manual, but you have this booklet here with a bunch of different pages, and you have to have this because this is actually, half the game. You have to have this as much as you have to have the cartridge to play this game, because it uses this booklet extensively throughout the course of the game. The storyline is a typical little ghost story involving a magical sacrifice, a little bit of a mystery, nothing too spectacular, but it does the job. It does what it needs to do to sort of set everything up and give a reason for using the camera obscura and this booklet. It sets things up and gets the ball rolling. Again, it's nothing that is too much of an emotional investment, but it does the job for its little ghost story that it tells here. What this game does is it uses the 3DS and the camera, and you use it to actually look through, and at times you will actually see ghosts in your environment as you're looking around my apartment here. I saw there was like a ghost sitting like near my couch, or you look up and it's coming down from the wall. And sometimes it works. There are some issues where you have to have really, really good lighting. I had problems in the bedroom because there wasn't quite enough natural light for the thing to work very well. So I went into the living room, and then that was fine. The other thing is, it doesn't quite have the effect that it wants to have when you're in the real-world environment when things are moving around, because sometimes the scale is really odd, or it doesn't quite mesh well enough to where you never really truly get a creepy feeling like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost in my living room. It really just feels like I'm looking through this camera, and it's kind of cool that it's having this ghost image superimposed on the camera image of the room as I'm going around, but it doesn't quite have the full effect that I would want it to. And the other thing is, it's cool that you actually have to kind of move around your environment, and you can be looking for something, and then it goes and hides from you. You actually have to turn the whole way around. But during some of the boss fights or some of the more crazy instances, I actually had to stand up and play the game because I was starting getting like rug burn, like going around on the carpet here, and I don't feel like I could play the game fully like sitting in a chair. I feel like it's one of those things where you almost have to be standing up and playing good portions of the game. So it does that in the real world environment, and then there also are areas that I wish there was more of where you go into an in-game environment and looking through the 3DS camera. And I wish there was more of that, because that feels more like a traditional Fatal Frame game. You're walking around inside the environment and you're still using it as if to almost like a mini VR type thing. Those segments are very, very short and not very involved, so it's a very tiny portion of the game. It's mostly the images of ghosts in your real world environment, and the book. The book is the main thing, where you will focus the camera, and different effects will happen on all these different pages depending on what lenses you use, and things will pop out of the book, or things will disappear or appear on the book, or like there'll be a section where part of musical notes are covered in like ink or things like that, and using a certain lens the ink will go away. You can reveal what's underneath, and you move the book around, you find certain things, you play sort of a ghost hide and seek with a masked child ghost through the pages of the book, and it's all pretty interesting. But again, the whole thing has some really cool ideas, but it's just never quite utilized in a way that really brings the full effect that I think it was going for. The when you zoom into the in-game world, which sometimes you're in the book and inside the page of a book there'll be a picture or a closet door or something, and you zoom into it and into this world, and it's very seamless and works really well. But those segments again are virtually non-existent. They're so short and few and far between, and the difficulty of having an environment to play in where it's going to work properly. You have to have a well-lit room and definitely natural sunlight and room to move around. And you have to be okay with, standing and kind of spinning around in circles in your living room looking for ghosts and things. And it didn't quite feel like there were ghosts in my environment in the way that I think it wanted to give that interesting horror feel. So all that was just kind of okay, and using the book and stuff was a lot of fun, but I didn't play a whole lot of the extra content after the story, just because playing through a little bit, it was just kind of the same thing over and over and kind of gimmicky, and like it wasn't that great. I feel like it was a very short experience. The main story only around 3 hours, but and when it really comes down to it, I didn't really want it to be too much more than that, because after that, it was just kind of the same thing over and over again. But I really think that it had a lot of cool ideas, and using the booklet and having the like a ghost hand come out of the book and interacting with it and using the camera and that function was really, really cool. And it's kind of a way of giving you sort of a virtual reality experience with no actual VR, just kind of the images through the camera. It's just a lot of cool ideas, but it's just a short-lived, little, interesting, unique experience. Nothing too extraordinary, but definitely fun, and a weird little side entry in the Fatal Frame series. So I'm very glad I had this and got to play it. Nothing too extraordinary, and it doesn't always work properly if you're not in a well-lit environment or a cloud goes by. Sometimes it's like, can't read the page, but a lot of great ideas, just not quite perfected during the course of the game.